Over the summer, I recorded a couple of videos for how to use PowerPoint when working with either Zoom or Teams, and the same will apply to WebEx as well. And I came up with couple of different methods of sharing your screen as a facilitator. And in fact, I've now come up with an even better way of sharing PowerPoint when you're facilitating slides. So let me walk you through what I've come up with here. So here's a slide deck that I'm going to ultimately share with clients, participants, either on Zoom or Teams. And the way I would typically do it is I would run this slideshow in a window rather than allow it to take over the full screen. And I'm running on Mac, by the way, so I'm not sure whether this same would work on a PC. But what I would normally recommend is two things. Traditionally, going into slideshow and using this option here, set up slideshow, and set up the slideshow so that when you run it, it's browsed by an individual window. So I talked about in one of my earlier videos. So when I do OK on that, and then when I run the slideshow, this appears in a window rather than taking up the whole desktop. And then in Zoom or Teams, I would share this window. So this window, including the title bar, which I'd ultimately really rather not have, but at the moment there's no way around that. But that window would then be shown with two participants, and then I would just click through that as I want to show different slides and build it in that way and go through the deck. One thing I recently found out that I hadn't used before is if I right click on here, one thing I can do is jump directly to a different slide. So if I've got all the titles in here, then I can just jump straight to slide 14 and I can jump around that. So I actually use that quite a bit now sometimes to jump around and move slides. I can also type in a slide number. So if I want to go straight back to slide number 1, I'm just tapping 1 on my keyboard and then enter, and it takes me back here. So that's worked absolutely fine. The only thing I've struggled with for a long time is, wouldn't it be great to be able to see the slides, all the slides, and maybe able to make live edits to those slides. So as I'm sharing them, to do any live edits, maybe add annotations. This is something I often do when groups come out of breakout rooms. Let me show you a typical one. Here we might welcome people back, and then let me go back a couple of slides there. Yeah, I might have a slide ready to start typing in what they came out with in their breakout rooms. Before the method I'm about to show you, what I would have to do is come out of presentation mode and go into design mode and share that. So I would come out of there and then I would share this screen, perhaps try and cut out some of the crap around the edge, and then they would see me typing in here. There is a better way, so let me show that. So if I go back to sharing this window, so again, I would run this presentation, and then I'd be sharing that in Zoom or Teams. Now, here's the new trick that I came across. So in Mac, if I go to the bottom of the screen where I have my running application shown, Microsoft is running that. If I right click on here and go into Open Recent and open the same slide deck again, it's just off the edge there, it's called Zoom for Facilitators. When I do that, what I do is I open up the same presentation but in design mode. Now notice this doesn't work if you go to File, Open Recent. It has to be from the docked version of PowerPoint down at the bottom. And now what's happening is I would still continue to be sharing this window through Zoom, but if I do any changes in this window down here, you'll see what happens. If I take that out, delete that, and I can start typing. And whatever I type here appears like magic to my participants. So they won't see the bottom window, they just see the shared window. So it's great because if I'm sharing slide 1, let's say, if I go back to slide 1, if maybe there was a spelling mistake in there, if I go down here, let's say I'd spelt my name incorrectly and I need to correct it, I can do that here. That's actually not the correct spelling of my name, that is. So I can do anything and it appears on the screen. If I'm on a slide here, let me move through to a different slide, and let's say for some reason I might want to add something to the agenda. If somebody says, oh, I'd like to also talk about sharing PowerPoint, then I can just add that in live. Comments, if I'm building, again, comments from people, I can just double click. So let's have a look, find an empty slide somewhere. What would be a good one to choose? Maybe this one down here. So remember, one thing I always have to remember is if I click this lower screen, it doesn't show up to participants. I need to get there on the top screen because that's the only thing that they see. So I'm scrolling through here, or I could just jump again by going by title, summary of discussions, so then I'm on the same, that one, which method will you use? If I double click in here, so PowerPoint defaults if you click on an empty space to creating a text box. So I can do that. The other thing I can do is if after this slide, as I'm talking, I suddenly think, actually, do you know, it'd be really good to have a blank slide coming up next to maybe to add some annotations, then I can just insert a new slide there, and then as soon as I click to go to the next slide, there it is, ready to go. So hopefully you find that useful. That's certainly revolutionized now the way I'm working with PowerPoint on Zoom and Teams, is having these two windows open. The one in presentation mode that I'm sharing to participants, and then the other one. And the other great thing, of course, is I can see what's coming next. If I start at slide 2 again here, I can be following along and thinking, okay, I've forgotten what's on slide 3 before I show it. I can even show, see my notes that I've got coming up. So hopefully that's helpful. It has really changed in the last week or so the way I'm using PowerPoint with Zoom and Teams. Oh, one final thing, PowerPoint came out with a new feature just last week, which I got very excited about, which is a reading view. So you would need to have downloaded the most recent version of PowerPoint, but one new view option here is reading view, which actually is exactly the same as the option where you're going to set up slideshow, browse in a window. So it looks exactly the same to me. It's just a quicker way of doing it. You can go straight into it. I would really love if Microsoft would take out that title bar, because that ends up being shared when you share it across Zoom or Teams. And if they could take out that, so it becomes exactly the same as if you were showing on a projector with no title bar, then it would be absolutely perfect. But at the moment, you are stuck with showing that title bar. Just make sure your PowerPoint file name isn't anything that anybody would object to. So that's reading view. To me, it's exactly the same as browse in a window when you set up the slideshow. So there's no real advantage to choosing one over the other. It's just a bit quicker. You don't have to go into slideshow, set up slideshow. You can just go into reading view. Keep your comments coming. If you find that useful or have any more questions, let me know.